Driving Maul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind Driving Maul, your best place for predictions and opinions. And yes, we are going to going through all of the action tonight. When I say we, that's because it's not just myself, but also Shane. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thanks, Paul. How are you?
Not bad at all. So another full round of action this weekend, and we kicked off with the Blues versus the Crusaders. Finished 8:25, and you were saying, and you were going, what are the Blues doing? Weren't you sort of in our pre-show?
Mm. Oh, look, I love them, like you do, Paul, like Ashwin does, like many Blues fans do. It's just I think they're just lacking something. Whether that's Bowden, whether he's not too far off, a few more weeks yet, but it's just lacking something that hasn't been there for a while, and the Crusaders start again.
Yeah, they do. And in this game, actually, early on, the Crusaders were missing tackles, they were turning over the ball. They weren't great early on. To be fair, they were definitely not fluent. But what we saw was what I saw anyway, was a real clash of styles. You've got the Crusaders, when they're playing well and when they make it look easy because they keep the ball alive with lots of runners and people around them. For those who are on the podcast, remember we are live at 8 p.m. every Monday evening with this show, with post-match Super Rugby review. So hello to everyone in the live chat who's there. You can always come in there and tell us your opinions about how the weekend went on. But so we had they try and keep the ball alive. The Blues, they don't try and do that. They try and get quick ruck ball, which means they're going into contact lots, and it just didn't work, did it? Talia, for example. To me, there was a time when he could have passed the ball inside to an open man, but he tries to beat the man, takes the contact, and yeah, it's really not a problem. It's really not going well.
When they scored that first try, that looked like an old school Wallabies try, and I really cried with pride when I saw that because that was great. But then they tried one-up stuff, and really weren't. Just lacking a bit of direction, Paul, weren't they, when in phase play time? And you don't want to do that to the Crusaders because they can get turnovers and they're pretty quick to the breakdown.
Yeah, knock-ons weren't helping. Knock-ons were killing the Blues in this game. Also, I took a stat at around about half-time where line-outs, 4 from 7 for the Blues, 9 from 9 from the Crusaders. If you're losing your line-out ball, losing 3 line-outs in that first half, you're just giving away too much territory, too much possession, and you even got your opportunities. And the Crusaders, as I say, didn't really do that. It took a while to click. Moanga's clearly still not fit because David Havili is kicking. And I mean, who had David Havili down as a potential person for top point scorer for the season? And Goodhue does what he does. A couple of nice offloads and calls it well. So. Definitely going. The Crusaders not clicking into gear yet, but getting the results. And at the end of the day, it's not this time of the year when they have to be at their best, is it?
No, but it won't be long. It won't be long, Paul. That's cue the screams and the broken windows because here come the Crusaders. It wasn't the most convincing Crusaders performance, but I'll tell you, it's not far off.
Yeah, they're getting there. And now the hooter goes and the score's 8-25. If the Crusaders score another try, they get a try bonus point. If the Blues score a converted try, they still get nothing. But the Blues kept on playing. You're like, guys, it's the wrong thing. Kick the ball out. Stop the Crusaders from getting any extra points, and move on. Just basic things like or stuff like that. To me, players need to get smarter on those kind of tactical decisions.
I've seen that in country footy, Paul, in rural New South Wales here. I remember a team down by 17, won a penalty on their own line, the attacking side. And they said, well, look, game's over, we're not going to win, we're not going to get a bonus point, we're just going to boot it out and start drinking.
Absolutely. And that's definitely the way to go. We followed that one up with the Rebels versus the Tars. Two sides that came into this with no wins, and it was a horrible wet day, wet night. 34 kicks from hand by the Rebels, 32 by the Waratahs. That's nearly a kick a minute. This was a tough watch.
I've got to say, as an Australian, it was a great watch. But yeah, it was the Australian way, and to be honest, Paul, you're right. It was a tough old game to watch, and it was not the best game of rugby or even the best derby we put on. But the Rebels got the job done, and probably they've saved their coaching staff until the end of the season. They've probably bought themselves a little more time.
And yes, the Rebels finally beat the Tars. It has been a bit of a hoodoo for them. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point, Joshua, in the chat there. The discipline really hurt the Tars in this one. 5 penalties to the Rebels, 11 to the Tars, and there's a lot of talk in Australia about discipline at the moment, isn't there?
Very much so. I can't wait to see what Dave Rennie thinks about that when he gets in May. And look, Richard Hardwick was outstanding at the breakdown, I thought, and they'd put him instead of Angus Cottrell. They can reverse those two between bench and starting position, and Izzy Nazarani got through a lot of work. And so did Corabetti, and Matt Tamua actually put in a 3-star performance as 10, and probably starts to put the stamp on the Wallabies' number 10 position.
Yeah, and he's the only experienced 10 in Australia, so he needs to start performing because, yeah, he is needed. It was good to see. If you look at who scored the tries for the Rebels, it was outside backs, but it was forwards that did all the work. This was close until the last 10 minutes. So yeah, it was as you say, typical derby. And as one guys, yeah, as Josh said, Maddox left us now. Look at the guy. Yeah, Maddox isn't getting enough game. I'm a bit surprised he's getting no game time down there in Sydney. But you think you get a bit more game time?
Well, he started, as did Dempsey.
Oh, he's on the wing. That's right. Yeah, sorry, I've got mixed up.
But he, it's going to be hard because Beale wants to run the show from whatever position he's in. Now, after the game, Tim Horan, who is probably the greatest inside centre to play rugby, I know that's controversial, but he's certainly the best I've seen. He has said, what do the Waratahs do? And it may be that they have to stick with people like Will Harrison. They've got to stick with Maddox because they're young blokes.
Yep.
This is their chance to shine now. If you keep going back to Beale at 10, and I've said play Beale at 10 for derbies only, I don't know where they go. They were certainly jumbled, and there's one thing about the Waratahs and the Blues. They both wear blue and they both give their fans the blue. So they've got to work out their best tactical formations and get on with it.
Yeah, they do. They've got plenty of options. It's just about getting the right combinations. I mean, Maddox again. I think he preferred to play at 15 than on the wing. But with Rona at 12, where do you put Beale then? Yeah, so it all becomes very difficult. We then went up to Japan for the Sunwolves versus the Chiefs. Finished 17-43, which I think is a bit harsh on the Sunwolves. I mean, they are playing a lot of rugby this season.
And they're playing some entertaining running rugby, and they're not afraid of any opponent that comes in their way. And I think it was a pretty gallant effort. I just think that the Chiefs were just a little bit better.
Oh, I mean, 17-43, there were a good 20-odd points better. But it's just about being clinical. But what was some stats here was that you can see that the outside backs for the Chiefs love having David McKenzie there. If you look at Garth April, he had 38 passes, 19 runs. A lot of stuff went through him. Whereas you compared Mackenzie and Trask, Mackenzie 12 passes, 9 runs, Trask 18 passes, 9 runs, about 50-50. Okay, slightly more for Trask than for Dave Mackenzie, but you can see Dave Mackenzie's really getting into that. Even though he's playing 15, he's in that first receiver a lot to get that much play. Both of them, if you add them together, you basically get the amount of work that April went through, which just shows you that by having David Mackenzie there, you're really asking the defence a lot of questions because they don't know which way it's going to go.
The most important thing was making the line breaks, which Mackenzie can do from broken play very well. And, it was a very nice gesture for the big fella, Solomon, to hand it back to him for giving him a line break and giving him a try. And I know one Chiefs supporter on Twitter, Jess, is loved saying that. That was a great humble moment in sport. I was really impressed with Mackenzie. He stepped up 2 or 3 gears. He did what he needed to do out there. And the Chiefs outside backs and really enjoy having him around.
Yeah, and whilst you got Theo and April's 15 carries, 19 carries, they've gone through a bunch of work. Nankiville did as well with 17 carries. But it's a tackling where the Sunwolves really need to sort things out. That first up tackling, 77% compared to 83 by the Chiefs. They need to get that 77 up into the low 80s at least. For all the fun play they'll have with ball in hand, if they don't get the defence up, it's always going to be a matter of can we score more than you, and most times that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, it did in the opening round, but it's not a continuous way to get good results. We then went on to Saturday. After that one, down to Wellington for the Hurricanes versus the Sharks. Again, something we've been talking about with the Sharks is that defence. It's all about that. And if the Hurricanes rack up 38 points, well, the Sharks are always going to find that a struggle to keep up with that rate of scoring. They got 22 themselves. Really good evening for Ben Lamb, not just on the try scoring, and even on highlights you can see him running back, covering, putting in the work rate, which, let's be honest, Ben Lamb sometimes gets criticised for.
Yeah, he does. I think a lot of the Hurricanes forward pack probably get criticised for the same thing, but they stepped up against the physical South African pack with the Sharks. Ben Lamb played really well, and 9 and 10 working well. TJ and Jackson Garden-Bishop, who in the last couple of weeks has started to step it up a little bit. He needs to. This is his probably last chance on the list, as I've mentioned before. So, all in all, a team effort by the Hurricanes, and good to see Dane Coles back too.
Well, yes, unfortunately, back to a bit of thuggish behaviour from Dane Coles. He needs to clean that up out because he's definitely getting a reputation for some cheap shots, which is not something you want to get a reputation for, because you'll get the opposition will look to let you know that's not going to be acceptable. Some interesting ones. I thought, with 2 crossfield kicks led to a couple of these tries, which is pretty much the style that the Hurricanes were playing a couple of years ago. They kind of went away from it a bit more last year. So interesting to see them reverting back to using that cross kick a lot more than pretty much anyone else does. Also, and there were some real strange stats in this one. Possession was slightly with the Hurricanes, but they kicked it 30 times to just 16 by the Sharks. So clearly a lot of contestable kicks, a lot of kicks that they caught themselves, those crossfield kicks in there. And turnovers, 13 by the Hurricanes, 21 by the Sharks. If you're not going to protect the breakdown, you're going to get yourself in some real trouble. It doesn't matter who you're playing if you're going to cough the ball up over 20 times. We then went over to Canberra for a bit of an upset win, I thought. Anyway, Brumbies 22, Highlanders 23. I guess the problem with the Brumbies, and it's been a problem for a number of years now, is they have a really good line-out maul. They scored 3 tries from it this time. But do they have anything else in the locker?
Oh, look, I certainly thought the Brumbies gave it absolutely everything and probably deserved a W instead of an L, but they probably also got to learn to close out games too. That was one of the big mistakes they made. They tried to do the little Crusaders thing with 90 seconds to go, and you know what happens with Australian sides. They were off their feet at the breakdown, and you know you're going to get penalised every time against a New Zealand side if you do that. And they just got the job done, though I've got to say, it took them 84, 85 minutes, so the Brumbies, they're no mugs.
No, they're not. But I mean, some telling stats. I mean, the Highlanders scored more. Sorry, the Brumbies scored more tries than the Highlanders. The Highlanders won this one with a boot, which is kind of not what you'd normally associate with New Zealand sides. But clean breaks. The Brumbies 0. The Highlanders only made 3, but 0 clean breaks in a whole game. That's not that's really worrying from an attacking point of view. That they need to find something more than just more out of their backs, really, because as I say, at the moment they're just too predictable. What they do is very good, don't get me wrong, but I guess the final thing is here is Nariki. He is some player. The Highlanders winger, well, I thought he actually was part of the Sevens program for the Olympics, so we'll see how much he actually plays. But he's willing to try things or chips over and get himself involved. So keep an eye out for him. It would be my shout. Then we went over to to South Africa for a game. I did not see this scoreline coming. Okay, the Stormers give up 0 points in week 1 and 0 points in week 2, and in week 3 they give up 30 points. 30-33. Wow, this was a kind of defence optional kind of thing. Is when you sort of racking up those kind of scores with these with teams that normally you'd say would be very much defence orientated.
Yeah, and very forwards orientated. The backs had a field day. And the Stormers are lucky to get out of jail because it took, like the Highlanders, this one took up until about the 82nd minute to get over the line with the try. So, you know, but it showed the Lions had a bit of resilience, which was good to see. And they were down by 11, and to almost win it. It's a pretty good effort.
It is. Look, the Lions had the possession, had the territory. In turnovers, they gave up 16, which is quite a big number. But the Stormers gave up 22 in this one. What it came down to was essentially the Stormers had 98 carries, the Lions 116. Right, so the Lions carried it more, but the Lions 339 meters. The Stormers 532 metres. The Lions were just running into a brick wall. As much as they got the points in the end, they just weren't as incisive as the Stormers. The Stormers, basically each run was nearly twice as far. And fine, they didn't have the territory, they didn't have possession, but their moves and they're just much more incisive, much more effective team than the Lions were here. And yeah, they got the win, as you say, perhaps a little bit fortunately, but that's what championship teams are kind of made of.
And a win's a win, isn't it, Paul? If you get the 4 points at the end of the day, people remember who did and how the other team lost. So, noting as we spoke off air that. With Super Rugby going back to its round robin system next year, where you have your 2 derbies this year, this is a fixture I will be looking forward to being a once-off fixture from next year onwards. So bring that on. It was some good rugby.
You don't want to see that one twice, is what you're saying?
I would, but I know that some of these games that do bring the best out of things, out of players and teams, you really cherish them, and that's one advantage of next year's system.
And then the final game, the Jaguares versus the Reds. Now, before we actually get on to the play, the jerseys, and it's not just this one. It's a lot of them. There seems to now be this trend now of we're going to wear an away jersey for all the away games. And we saw that with the Reds. So the Reds have got a nice red jersey, which would be in contrast to the black one of the Jaguares. But no, we will wear our dull kind of grey. Okay, it's stripes, but overall look is kind of grey, and they'll wear black, and it's just you could tell the difference, but it could have been much more obvious. A bit like the New Zealand teams. Again, the Chiefs wearing their funny blue jerseys up in up in Japan. I can't remember actually the Brumbies, Highlanders, but yeah, look, stop it with these away jerseys unless there's a clash, then change. Otherwise, just wear your home jersey, please, because then we can recognise who it is. Am I the only one that's kind of on this rant?
No, I agree with you. As you can see, my Reds jumper is about the 2010, 2011, when they went away from that traditional maroon, which they've come back to for home games and particularly clashes against New South Wales. They should have been wearing the traditional maroon jumper, and the Jaguares, who I reckon have the best orange jumper ever, and I want one. So if anyone knows where I can buy one, I will. They should have been probably wearing that, and that would have, there's no clash there. But
for me,
I agree with you.
I want to flip on the TV, look at the screen, and be able to just straight away tell who's playing. And with these away jerseys, you can't do that. So getting on to the game itself, cliche time, a game of two halves. The leading 12-24 at half time by the Reds, and in the second half just fell to pieces. To lose 43-27. It wasn't like a windy day or anything, was it?
No, clear skies it looked like, and a good night for rugby and a good night for running rugby. And the Reds obviously got out nice and early, and I've got to say this, I kind of played pretty well at 10. It's I thought he did all right in this tour at 10, but obviously we'll see what he gets against the Sunwolves this Saturday night.
Yeah. I've not been a fan of his selection at 10, but you're right, he's stepped up and has done well for the Reds at 10. Now, 4 line-out maul tries by the Jaguares. The commentators were trying to say, "Oh, this is what they're used to," and it's like, no, this is not what I know the Jaguares for. I know the Jaguares for fast attacking back moves, but they just stuck it up the jumper, and off they went.
And very well. And the Reds' maul discipline was shocking. That's what I don't get given that Brad Thorne, a former lock, is the Reds coach. Not going to go into blaming players or things tonight, but they could have done a lot better in that second half. The Argentinian boys, I know there's been a lot of complaints about the refereeing in this one, but the Reds did do some stupid things with their discipline, and they've got to work on that. Because the Sunwolves are next, and we all know if you mess around with discipline what the Sunwolves can do in attack.
Yeah, the penalty count in this one was 3 to the Jaguares, 13 to by the Reds. Discipline was absolutely killed the Reds, and as you say, there have been question marks around the refereeing of this one, but not just of this one. there's been question marks of, I think, well, particularly out of Australia, I'm seeing tweets of question marking all the home, all the times Australian teams are not playing away. They reckon they get the wrong end of the stick. But they definitely got it wrong that night. Reds can make the playoffs apparently, according to Batman. The Arms Bad side are looking better than the Blues and Highlanders. Well, yes, we'll see about that. I think they'll have to get past the Brumbies. I can't see them getting a wild card place myself.
No, look, I love the Reds and always will. That's why I'm wearing my jumper today. I still believe they did a lot of good things in that game. They're not going to make the finals, mate. It'd be nice to see them win 5 or 6 games a year these days. I think it shows that Australian rugby has gone a long way backwards in many regards. So, and a big shout out to Tony Alatupo, 50 Super Rugby caps. So well done, mate. So
yeah, it only seems like he's been around for like 2 years, but I guess this must be his 3rd season, or maybe
fourth, I think.
4th season,
4th or 5th.
So he's done. Yeah, it's got a lot of caps still left in him. So good on him with that one. So there you go. There's our roundup of all the action from last weekend. Obviously, the side that had the bye were the Bulls, and having lost their opening 2 games, boy, did they need a weekend off to try and sort things out. So we'll see how they come back. Quick look at the conferences then. So we have the Chiefs at the head of the New Zealand conference on 13 points, followed by Crusaders on 9, Hurricanes on 8, Blues on 5, and the Highlanders on 4. I guess what we can say there is that, Chiefs and Crusaders pretty much going as we'd expect, but the Hurricanes, boy, they've turned things around after week 1, haven't they?
They have, and the Hurricanes usually do. I really enjoy watching them play. Probably, even more so than the Crusaders because, I hate the Crusaders. I mean, they're a good side. But I really enjoy something about the Hurricanes with their back line and with the mobile forwards if they're on song. So they've come a long way since round 1. There's still, as we well and truly know, Paul, a long way to go though.
There's a long way to go, but look, people counting out after that first game. There's a lesson for you. Heading over to Australia Conference, Brumbies top it with 9 points. The Rebels in second on 4. The Sunwolves also in third on 4 points. Reds on 2, and the Waratahs still with no points at all. So far, the Australian teams haven't beaten an overseas team. It's looking tough for the Australian sides. I think basically whichever team tops the conference will obviously get a playoff place, but the rest are going to have early holidays.
Oh, it's going to be nice Hawaiian vacation for the other 3 Australian sides, because I reckon the Brumbies will win the conference.
Yep.
And I think, and this is just my honest opinion here, if Rennie fails as Wallabies coach and McKellar does continue to put this team into finals and top 4, he will be the Wallabies coach at the end of the 2021 Rugby Championship. That's my opinion. And then he'll by then have the Super Rugby experience that will help him into that job. The Brumbies are Australia's best side, and they are for a reason. They are as tough as nails. It took 85 minutes for the Highlanders to beat them. I guess
the only worrying thing is I don't think the Highlanders are a great side this year. So we'll have to see how well that result or how good that result looks in a couple of weeks' time. Over on the South Africa Conference, the Stormers top there with 13 points. The Jaguars are second on 10, with the Sharks on 8, the Lions on 5, and the Bulls on 0. The Lions, after 2 losses and a win over the Reds, they get their bye this week, and I think it's generally having an early bye is not good. But when you've lost to the Jaguars and the Stormers, I think the Lions need a week off to regroup and get a few things sorted out.
A lot better effort the last couple of weeks from the Lions than in round one. But yeah, look, I'm sure a break's good as a holiday, and let's see how the Bulls go when they come back. But the Stormers look like they're setting the pace nice and early.
They do. Also, the Jaguars finalists last year, we all predicted they would go well. The thing about the Sharks is they've got 2 wins, and they've already had 2 of their away tour games. Just got 2 more in Australia. They'll have the tour out the way. If they get another win in the next 2 games, they'll be actually looking quite good with that tour out the way and home games, or not leaving South Africa again for the rest of the season. Well, maybe actually, sorry, they might have to go across to Argentina, but yeah. But so yeah, getting their travel out the way and points on the board, I think it's a decent start for the Sharks.
It's pretty dangerous going to Durban to go and play them. That's the thing about the South African sides. You don't want to go to Newlands or Durban. It doesn't matter what conference you're from, because those teams like the Stormers, Sharks, they're going to make it really hard for you.
They are. Okay, so that's how things are standing now. If you head over to DrivingMaul.com, I'll be putting out my predictions for next week within the next few hours. There's also predictions for the Six Nations, the Top 14, the Pro 14, the Gallagher Premiership, and Major League Rugby as well. So go check out all of that on DrivingMaul.com. Don't forget, we'll be back next Monday at 8 p.m. with the roundup of all of the Super Rugby action from last weekend. And on Thursday, I will be having, I've swapped presenters. So normally we have Stephen on the Monday night and Shane on the Thursday night, but this Thursday I'll have Stephen help me preview all the games for next weekend. So don't forget, hit subscribe and the bell down below. Thank you very much, Shane, for joining me this evening.
Thanks, Paul, for having me on, and let's see how the next week goes.
And don't forget, you can see our Twitter handles just down below our faces. I'm at DrivingMaul. Schooler-mate is Shane. So come over and have a chat there. We're live during games and stuff. So come and talk to us on Twitter.